What's up, GoBots? It's your boy Alex. You've docked at Seeker Central, the place where we take an elevated look at the Transformers trading card game. And oh, doggy, has it been hot here in Colorado ever since Wave 3 War for Cybertron Siege was released. And that is because the sky is on fire. That's right, we're talking about the Aerialbots today. We're doing a full Decktech with Sideboard, so let's get started.
Come on, we got Stunticons to pound.
Let's start with the really obvious cards out of the way first. We're playing a full playset of Handheld Blaster and Security Checkpoint. There are double-pipped blue cards, and we gotta play all of them that we can fit into this deck if we want to survive. Security Checkpoint can absolutely get you some card advantage, but it's really here for those double pips. This is a burn deck, so we gotta burn them out, primarily with 3 copies of Inferno Breath. We're also running 3 copies of Armed Hovercraft and 3 copies of Marksmanship because we just gotta be pushing as much damage as we can every turn. If we can do between 4 and 6 damage through a combination of direct and pierce damage, then we're gonna be absolutely golden throughout the game, given our ability to survive long stretches. That being said, we're also running 2 copies of Aerialbot Enigma. Don't sleep on the fact that you play this after you've combined to do 1 damage to every one of your opponents.
Megatron's been battling us on the roads. We'll fight him in the skies.
We're running a few different cards that add power to our characters when they attack. We're running a full playset of Laser Cutlass. Now really, this is a Laser Cutlass deck. This is an absolute MVP card, and it is one that you want to prioritize landing and making sure sticks around. The amount of advantage you can get through with the Pierce 3 is absolutely incredible. And again, don't forget, if you combine while one of your characters has the Laser Cutlass on, your Superion then gets that Laser Cutlass, which means you're swinging for 7 Pierce 6 every turn. That's right, 7 Pierce 6. So if on the turn that you combine, you're then attacking, you've done 3 damage, and then doing at least another 6 damage, assuming there isn't a point defense system out on the field. We're also running 3 copies of The Bigger They Are. In almost all situations, the character that we're going to be attacking is going to be a higher star count than what we're running, so you're going to get that Pierce 4 all the time. And get with the +2 attack, in almost all instances, you will get a full 4 damage out of that Pierce 4. Only Fireflight in what is it? Alt mode? Yeah, in alt mode has 1 attack, which would then bring it up to a base 3. And we're not running any orange in this deck, so just realize that that's what's going to happen. Then we are running 2 copies of Steady Shot. Now this is both a +2 attack, but also, it's a black pip. We're not running a ton of black pips in this, but I wanted to run Steady Shot over Leap into Battle just because I wanted the added utility of that black pip on flips, because you're more likely to flip a card than play it, so I'd rather have it come up in that instance where a Leap into Battle, when you flip it on attack, is just not going to do anything.
Now to take them to Vector Sigma for cybernetic personalities.
Alright, so that's how we're pushing damage through, but how do we accrue enough advantage in order to survive long enough to make all of this happen? Well, we're running a full playset of Field Communicator to start with. You have 2 characters on this list that are specialists, Skydive and Alpha Bravo. So your chances of actually having a character out that you can land one of these field communicators on, and Procket's ability is really high. We're also running 2 copies of Brainstorm. As you'll see, we have quite a fair amount of card draw, so we should have the ability to play 2 actions by having them in our hand. Plus, we can stack things like card draw into another action. Speaking of card draw, we have 2 copies of Pep Talk and a playset of Work Overtime. I've been experimenting between Pep Talk, Repurpose, Work Overtime, Inspiring Leadership, and this is really where I'm settling at least for the time being. A lot of the time, you want to play your Brainstorm into a Work Overtime and then draw 3 or 4 and play something off of that. We're also running a total of 8 white pips in the deck, so we're right at about 1/4 of the time that we're going to be flipping a white pip. So our odds of actually getting 1 but not 2 or more is pretty good for what we're going with. Then we're running a full playset of Vaporize because we just need the interaction. We need it. And if we don't have it, well, we're just going to lose. In a lot of instances, they might have a weaponizer or something that's going to be able to do a huge amount of damage to you, to your Superion, and just blow through that defense. Well, you need a way to interact with that, and that's what the Vaporize does. In addition, we're also running 2 copies of Force Field, because in a lot of instances, Force Field means 1 extra turn, and this deck is in a lot of times equals you won because you just got there on that turn. And so getting that 1 extra turn out of a Force Field is really important, even with all the upgrade hate that's going around. You'll notice that's the whole of the deck. We're not running a lot of armor at all to begin with. We're not running things like Smoke Cloak or Reinforced Plating, at least in the main board. But since we've started talking about Reinforced Plating, let's start talking about the sideboard. We're running a 2 copies of Reinforced Plating in the board. If we're going up against a wide aggro matchup, then Reinforced Plating is going to be great. Like if you're going up against Constructicons that are not Pierce reliant, but that actually kind of seems where they're going, or if you're running up against like an Orange Insecticon stack or something like that, Reinforced Plating can be great just to mitigate that extra damage. We're also running 2 copies of Plasma Burst in the sideboard just to get that little bit of extra damage, especially if you're going up against small characters and you can get that 2 damage to just KO a character. Then for added disruption, we have a bunch of cards from Wave 3, specifically 6 secret actions. We're running 2 Infiltrate, 2 Dampening Field, and 2 Hiding Spot. These come in to counteract different specific strategies. So, for example, Take Cover, you're generally going to bring in against like a 3-wide prime list because they're likely to be running a lot of cards like Strafing Run and Photon Bomb because they can get a ton of advantage out of it, especially against us, and that just wipes it off. I run RC as the sideboard character instead of Motor Master, which is what a lot of people were doing in Wave 2 constructed. And I found that Take Cover takes up the spot that Motor Master would have occupied within the sideboard, whereas RC can flip back and forth to heal lots of damage off of our characters. You may have noticed we're not running Energon Axe, and that's because we just don't want to be taking damage at all, and we don't want a card that relies on us being in a bad position to get some leverage out of it. Plus, Laser Cutlass is frankly just better in this deck. We're running Dampening Field for Lionizer decks because, yeah, Lionizer decks, they're awesome. And we're running 2 Infiltrate for both Weaponizer decks, Orange decks, Peace Through Tyranny decks, things like that. Infiltrate is great for that. Now remember, if you play an Infiltrate and then they play a Peace Through Tyranny, they do not have to scrap one of their characters. It's a May ability to scrap a character, and if they do so, they then take an extra turn. So even if you counter that piece through tyranny, you're not getting a free scrap out of it. They won't get the extra turn, but you're not getting a free scrap.
Aerialbots, show them what you've got! No! It can't be!
We've talked about all of the battle cards, so let's get to the characters. Obviously, we're running all of the Aerialbots. This is an Aerialbots list. You run the Aerialbots. So, what are we doing with these characters? I like to first start with flipping Air Raid and then attacking with Skydive in alt mode. I like to have Air Raids scrapping an upgrade ability just kind of on layaway and ready to use when needed, and I like to then throw Skydive out first to soak up as much nonsense as possible. From there, my preferred game plan is to then use an Inferno Breath at some point to prevent one of my other characters from getting KO'd, so that I then go into the next turn sequence where you untap with all of the characters untapped. Then you can try to use Inferno Breath again to have Fireflight take an attack that's going to absolutely KO him, but with a ton of extra damage is just going to get wasted. Inferno Breath in this way becomes a very important card because it allows you to have a lot more control over how the game plays out and what your opponent is doing on attacks. From that initial flip of Air Raid, you're then probably going to flip Silverbolt next in order to mark a damage on a character. However, if you're going up against a blue list that you think might have an Energon Axe, it's probably better to stack damage on a single character as opposed to giving more targets for an Energon Axe. From there, land laser cutlasses onto your characters and then attack plus do direct damage until you can get to Superion. Once you get to Superion, the game starts to close out very quickly. Especially if you have a laser cutlass on Superion when it combines. Remember, that's the only opportunity you're going to have to get a laser cutlass, and in some instances it may actually be better to wait a turn to combine in order to make sure that you have a laser cutlass out on the field. Or just make sure that you play that cutlass before you play the Enigma, and make sure that that Superion has it, because that's 7 attack, pierce 6 on every swing. That's likely going to eat whatever is left on the board very quickly, especially if you've been able to land a bunch of direct damage with cards like Inferno Breath, Marksmanship, and Armed Hovercraft. This deck is so much fun to play, and if you happen to go up against a list that's running a whole bunch of hand disruption and you don't think you're going to ever find that Enigma or keep it in your hand, then you can bring RC in out of the board and just cause so many headaches, but just going back and forth, flipping. What I like to do when I put RC in is I typically like to take Alpha Bravo out. Air Raid essentially operates as a better Alpha Bravo that doesn't combine into Superion, so that's basically what you're going to want to do. Obviously, if you're going up against a Plains list, Alpha Bravo may not be what you want to take out, but then again, if you're going up against, a Raider Visper list where they're trying to Sonic Scramble you, they're probably not going to be surviving long enough to make you do that anyway, so what are you really worried about? And that's it, GoBots. It's not that difficult. You just turtle up, do direct damage, and infuriate your opponent on your way to going to match time. This is easily my most favorite deck to play so far in Wave 3. I like playing it even more than Lion Lock, which, that deck is super fun, but you're having 10-minute rounds and you're doing a lot of sitting. This deck is a lot of fun and a lot of play, and as you saw in the earlier video series, I took an earlier version of this that was a far less tuned version, to a 3-0 victory at a local event. This is a deck that you can easily pick up and play, and is not all that expensive because all of the character cards are uncommon. Actually, are they common or uncommon? They're common! How about that? A full common list that gets it done. Now, yes, there are a bunch of battle cards that are on the pricier side, like Security Checkpoint, and I think Laser Cutlass is still holding a bunch of value from Wave 3. But in either event, this deck is just so much fun to play, and I hope you have as much fun playing it as I have. And until next time, GoBots, please let me know down in the comments what you think of this deck. If you take it out to a local tournament and do well with it, let me know. That always warms my heart. I've had a couple of people do that already, and ooh, it makes me really, really happy to be able to help people out like that. So, until next time, like, share, and subscribe. You've been Docked at Seeker Central. I'm your boy, Alex. Go out and seek higher burning skies.